Predators have given us our systems of belief, our ideas of good and evil, our social mores. They are the ones who set up the hopes and expectations and dreams of success or failure. They have given us covetousness, greed, and cowardice. It is the predators who make us complacent, routinary, and egomaniacal. But how can they do this, Don Juan? Carlos asked, somehow angered further about what Don Juan was saying. Do they whisper all that in our ears while we're asleep? No, they don't do that. That's idiotic, Don Juan said, smiling. They are infinitely more efficient and organized than that. In order to keep us obedient and meek and weak, the predators engage themselves in a stupendous maneuver. Stupendous, of course, from the point of view of a fighting strategist, a horrendous maneuver from the point of view of those who suffer it. They gave us their mind. Do you hear me? The predators gave us their mind, which becomes our mind. The predator's mind is baroque, contradictory, morose, filled with the fear of being discovered any minute now. I know that even though you have never suffered hunger, you have food anxiety. And that is none other than the anxiety of the predator who fears that any moment now, its maneuver is going to be uncovered and food is going to be denied. Through the mind, which after all is their mind, predators inject into the lives of human beings whatever is convenient for them. And they ensure in this manner a degree of security to act as a buffer against their fear. The sorcerers of ancient Mexico were quite ill at ease with the idea of when the predator made its appearance on Earth, like when it came. They reasoned that man must have been a complete being at one point, with stupendous insights, feats of awareness that are mythological legends nowadays, and then everything seems to disappear. And we have now a sedated man. What I'm saying is that what we have against us is not a simple predator. It is very smart and organized. It follows a does not work. It follows a methodical system to render us useless. Man, the magical being that he is destined to be, is no longer magical. He's an average piece of meat. There are no more dreams for man, but the dreams of an animal who is being raised to become a piece of meat. Trite, conventional, and imbecilic. Okay? You're like, whoa, that is some heavy ka-chunka. I know, it is. It is. I think it's very well written. That's why I read that almost every semester here. So that is a perfect description of what the hacking of the human operating system at the level of the yellow solar plexus is about. That quote talks about a time when humans were magical, mythological feats of awareness. That's like the ancient concurrent time of Atlantis, a time before our minds were hijacked and polluted. And we, of course, lived very extremely long chronological lives, but also were extremely vital the whole time. And that is because we were not constantly frittering away our energy in these negative and corrosive thought patterns. And all of this, so that's viewpoint from distillation of ancient Mexican wisdom presented in the 1960s. It was bad then. So it was bad in ancient Mexico. It was bad in the 1960s. It is worse now for a variety of unspoken reasons. Because the implantation of the predator's mind into the human mind is something that happened on a genetic and esoteric, energetic, and chakra level. But what we have now in this time and place is the use of technology, the use of a subdermal neural connectivity system that makes it even more difficult to free your mind from these caustic and diminishing thought patterns and to be truly free. And so now we have to get into my rant, and I'll get to all of your beautiful questions. Don't worry. My rant against my own work of the things that I talk about that worked 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, like yours and all of our chakras, we were not connected in this artificial sense. The synthetic telepathy has connected people so that one is destabilized by the other people around them. If you could imagine, as we look at this picture over here, go back to this, get an annotation. Um, like if here's another person over here, and imagine, so when I draw my chakra paintings, these are all like perfect anatomy because you can see like all of these are perfectly horizontal. And then this red chakra and violet chakra, perfectly vertical. All right. So that shows this person is like a super ascended master in a state of perfect health. But what happens usually is these chakras wobble. Like this orange one might be at an angle like this green one might be at an angle like this, and that represents that there is some amount of energy that is being destabilized. So what if this guy over here has a chakra that is at an angle like this, and then he comes closer to you and then makes your chakra go like this? That is what you're facing. And it might be at the level of emotions, like orange is the level of emotions. That's what I just drew there. But it might be at the level of intellect. And that happens. Like, what if this guy over here reads a bunch of propaganda or watches the TV news, gets a bunch of propaganda from the TV news? And then you're out walking your dog and he comes along and says, "Hey, what a cute dog." And oh, by the way, did you hear such and such propaganda? That literally causes this level of destabilization in your own mind and your own emotions. What if he doesn't talk to you? What if he just comes along and comes near you in your energy field? Because his energy field touches on your energy field, it destabilizes you. What if he doesn't actually come near you in the park? What if he just sits in his house over here watching his TV? Let's draw the TV. Here's the TV. All right. And here's the antennas. It's not, he doesn't have cable. And he's watching the TV and getting destabilized, but he's not actually even in your presence because of the synthetic grid that has been created, satellites and telecom and all the things that I always talk about and allude to, just gloss over that very quickly so we don't get banned, is going to have an impact on you because that stuff is artificially connecting people, even if he's not sitting right next to you. And none of that is okay. None of that is okay. So first of all, I rant against that. Yes, you could definitely say that the predators have given some scientists and technologists and different forms of electrical engineers a bunch of terrible ideas. Like most of our technology comes from the predator's mind, and they've given them some terrible ideas that amount to a more effective way to harvest energy. So let's go back, rewind a little bit. What is the motivation for the implantation at the level of yellow chakra? The motivation is to create a spigot, a faucet, an on-off energy harvesting siphon that the predators can use because, as Don Juan talks about it, they have food insecurity. They're afraid of going hungry. And so what they wanted to do was get a captive population, implant them with these little spigots or faucets or on-off buttons. And that's your mind. And then be able to push the button whenever they're hungry. Need some loosh? Push the button. Need some anxiety? Push the button. Need some bad energy? Push the button. Sadness, grief, whatever. Like, push this button here. Like, some kind of dispenser in the 7-Eleven where you put your drinks, like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, like sadness, grief, loss, anxiety. What are you feeling like today? Push the button and you can get some of that. I'm a predator. And then drink it. Yum. So that's part of it. They have a food insecurity because now I have to speak about the origins of the predatory mind. Predator is not the same as a farmer. A hunter is not the same as a farmer. If we were to even validate their existence in the ecosystem of consciousness, which is what I tried to do in my notes from 10 years ago, prepare for the rant, because these things should not be validated in the ecosystem of consciousness. They are actually aberrations that shouldn't exist. But if we were to validate them, we would say, oh, once upon a time, they existed as a type of predator who prowled along. Like imagine a lion that's living in Africa somewhere. And it's like, I'm so hungry. I have to eat a gazelle. Where are all the gazelles? Let me go and find them. And then I find the gazelles. And then I have to run really, really fast and be wily and crafty. And then if I'm lucky, I will catch one of them and eat it. And I'll gorge and I'll eat everything. And then I'll, sit around for a long time digesting it. But then at a certain point, I'll have to go out hunting again. And this is like a constant state of like having to find food, having to work hard for food? What if I'm a hungry lion and I go out hunting and then all the gazelles run away and then I'm like, no, I'm hungry and empty inside. I just have to sit here and be hungry and empty. That's the life of a predator. You feast, but you also starve. And that's also like, it's interesting. Like, if you just want to know about your own body, there's nothing wrong with this in your body, but some people benefit a lot from intermittent fasting because that is what your body is made to do. Like, you are actually made to go out hunting, kill a big animal, eat it, be full for a long amount of time, and then not eat. Not to be like, let's go out to the Cheesecake Factory, eat a giant animal, and then come home and then snack in front of the TV even more and more and more. Like, that is not what your body is made for. So that is why people metabolically can benefit from intermittent fasting. But that's the original hunter. And there is something noble about being a hunter. You live and die by your wits. You live and die by your muscles. Get fat and lazy, you are not going to survive because you got to get out there and hunt every day. So the predator stopped being a predator. The predator became a farmer. What the predator was supposed to feed off of is your emotional fluff, is the best way I can say it, undigested, lower level emotions. So there's different qualities to emotions. The emotions of the orange level have a different quality to the emotions that come from green and above. The emotions that come from love and above are not edible to the predator. And the flaw in my work is blithely saying, oh, just remain in love and above, and you will be non-choppable. And that sounds so great, so sarcastic. It sounded like a good idea at the time. When I wrote all of that, it was a very valid approach that I was experiencing. I'm like, oh yeah, I just raised my energy up to a love and above level. And that way these lower level, like, minions, nonsense, parasitic fleas, like, these little like mosquitoes. I'm using analogies here, like minor annoyance, inconveniences can't get to me. And also it was a little bit of a sense of like, be smarter than them, outclass them. To be like, oh, just get faster than them, be at a level that they can't get at you. I've used the example also of like a daddy long leg spider. They actually are very venomous, but you don't have to be afraid of them because their teeth literally cannot penetrate human skin. So even though they're very venomous, they're like, I can't bite you. I can't bite you. I can't bite you. I'm going to go bite someone else. All right. That's the idea of what I wrote about in my notes from 10 years ago. Sounds great. And it's also very conveniently non-confrontational and non-violent. In fact, what I hate the most about what I wrote 10 years ago, if I may scroll backwards with funny faces through my notes at the very, very beginning, where I say, this is poop and doo-doo. Don't believe this. This is wrong. What I said was unconditional love is the antithesis of fighting. Boom. If you listen to my notes from 10 years ago, right now in this world with all the synthetic telepathy and pollution that is here, you will die. Throw it out the window. Do not believe in what I wrote from 10 years ago because my approach was just meditate, 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 raise your energy to the level of unconditional love and become unchompable to the predator. Sounds like a good idea. Totally does not work in a non-pristine system because what this non-pristine system has done, literally this stuff goes into the body and it creates an antithesis force field that takes you out of love. So here you are, like, let's act this out. All right. You're like, I'm meditating, om, 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 I am meditating, my energy is getting up, I'm accelerating, I am totally in a sense of inner peace and calm, I'm awesome. And then they're just gonna take this stuff and they're gonna like zap you. So imagine now you're being like zapped with a ray gun, zap, 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 and then all of a sudden your love energy is drained away. And you're not in a love state anymore. And now you're back down to the orange state. Like imagine whatever, your glass of water is filling up all the way to you're meditating, glass of water is filling up. Here you are at unconditional love. And then they turn on the zap, zap ray and it brings your energy down again because you lose a bunch of energy out of your energy reserves and it brings you back down to orange. And you're like, harumph, I guess I just have to meditate harder. You meditate, meditate, meditate. And then what they do is zap, zap, zap you again. And the zaps are not even verbalized experiences because it used to be that we would experience verbalized friction. like an actual thought in your mind that you fight against. Like, oh, that's a thought. Because thoughts are living creatures and they fly around like neutrinos. And you can be like, I don't want that thought. I don't want that thought. I don't actually not to energize that thought. And you could make it so that it wouldn't bring you down out of a love posture. But this technological stuff, there is not a way to fight against it. You can be an ascended master and be standing right in front of one of these types of towers, and it can zap you and it can take away all of your energy. And that's all the greats. If Jesus or Buddha or any of those guys stood in front of one of these towers, they would have been zapped into oblivion too. It's not fair. It's the total antithesis of justice. It is completely wrong and a complete aberration. So, of course, you were already digging yourself out of a hole. You had this thing that came in, infested your DNA, infested your social and culture. At the quote from Don Juan speaks about it very well. The predators gave you this entire Baroque belief system, and it's also broken. It is Baroque and it's broke. It's both of those things. It is non-functional. Your belief of good and evil, that's totally effed. It is not accurate. And morals and ethics and social dynamics and money. Money is a perfect example of the predator's mind becoming your own mind and becoming a part of your own behavioral expression. You're like, oh, I'm afraid if I don't have enough food through hunting and gathering, I better listen to these supposed God creatures that come from the sky and become an agricultural creature. And then as you become an agricultural creature, be like, well, maybe I won't have a good year next year, so I better store up all of my grain and barley. And then be like, now I stored up all this grain and barley, but it does tend to rot and get eaten by rodents, so I better create some kind of artificial markers for value, and that's money. And all of that is predator mind. And they're like, well, now that I have these artificial markers for value named money, I can use that to buy food whenever I need it, except I don't have enough. I need more markers for value. I need more markers for value. I think I need to have banks and bank accounts. And I think I also need to have interest-bearing accounts so I can always be getting more and more and more. It is a mania. It is unhealthy, and it is the way that any organism is acting when it has this level of basic resource insecurity and food insecurity. Goes manic, meaning enough is never enough. When people are in a manic state, they're like, I need everything. Enough is never enough. And that is why you have millionaires. That is why you have billionaires. A billionaire literally has so much money that they cannot even spend it all in one lifetime. And it is still never enough because they're not going to be like, I'm a billionaire. I don't really need to keep all my billions in an interest-bearing account. They're like, no, we need to please the board. We need to get even more money. I'm going to start a company. That's what I mean to say, please the board. We need to start a company. We need to offer dividends and we need to expand. And we're going to